We just went over the strongest players of each role.
Yep.
So I feel like we listed, the candidates as far as you pick the ones from the two that we put in most places.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of just a fight between roles.
Yeah, and I basically already made an argument for this on the analyst desk 3 days ago. So I will talk about Doublelift here in the fact that oftentimes MVP is best player on best team, but here I feel like even if Team Liquid might not have been the best, I still might consider Doublelift because he is the primary win condition in so many of their games, and he's been a high performer in all of those games. The second place team is Cloud9, who has had so many different players and so many different strategies. It's really hard to nail down where the value most heavily lies. Jensen has been great. Blabber has been great. Licorice has been great. Sneaky's been 10-2. Zazel's even been a good shot caller. I think Jensen and Licorice are the two MVP candidates on C9, and there's a chance they take votes from each other because people will have different reads on who was most contributing to their success throughout the year.
Yeah.
But when you look at Team Liquid, it was Doublelift who most contributed to their success and their first place.
Through that lens, what about, you have to then think about Someday, right? Like, I think the third place team, to me, like, he was one of the biggest reasons for sure. Yes, they, like, a lot of their playstyle is about Cody-san, but I feel, I've always felt like Someday buys them the time to play slow because he does play aggressively. He does make plays around the map. He is creating pressure and absorbing pressure. And I think that is something that, like when I think about 100 Thieves, I immediately think of Someday, and he has been really, I think, responsible for a lot of their good performances. So I would throw his name into the ring as well. The kind of three that you mentioned plus Someday, so like would be, I think, probably who just off the top of my head I would be considering most heavily.
I agree.
And I feel like
they'll get the majority of the votes.
This is one of the years where there actually won't be as much controversy over this MVP award.
You think?
Yeah. I mean, because as you're saying, and you go down the list, like, do you feel confident nominating anyone from Echo Fox with how up and down their season has been? I guess the first name that I would put forward would be Dardoch.
But I don't think there's a chance.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
From Echo Fox, do you put anyone forward as an MVP?
No.
Because they have all had, big moments of mistakes. And, to Doublelift's credit, this has been the season where even when the team is playing, performing really badly, he hasn't had the meme play or whatever, where people usually pick out one, thing that he did.
My one thing that I would bring
I think
up,
Cloud9's probably the closest.
Yeah, my one thing I would kind of bring up as far as like, there being frustrations or whatever, or like questions about why someone got it or didn't get it, is there's been so much talk about Doublelift hasn't been an MVP, has never won the MVP award, and everyone thinks of Doublelift as an MVP caliber player. How much does it come into consideration for a lot of people with the fact that it's like, yeah, Doublelift deserves it, right? Like, Doublelift should get one. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but it's the fact that he hasn't for so long, I think, works in his favor, because it starts to be one of those cases where people are like, well, yeah, he definitely should get one. Like, how do I give him one almost?
You're like, oh, this is the year. Perfect.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? And it's, again, it's not to say that he doesn't deserve it. I think he very well could. But there's like that sort of discussion is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think, because we're mainly focusing on teams that have had success and at the top of the bracket, right? All the teams you listed, basically 1 through 4, you're picking and choosing your candidates for most valuable player for their team.
PoE.
I think Power of Evil also has even though they didn't even make it into playoffs, right? Getting them to 9-9 after their poor spring split and hard carrying also a bunch of their games. I feel like this might be the other tact as far as that argument does go for being most valuable to their team, even though the team overall didn't hit the top of the standings.
Yeah. It's definitely very interesting. And one thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to kind of go through the whole discussion before I brought it up at all.
Okay.
Is this the first time that it feels like people aren't even considering TSM members? Like, and I'm not saying that's incorrect at all.
I think some people are probably considering.
But it's very interesting, right? Because when you think about over the last couple of years, the first team it feels like almost always, like I would have to go back and actually look through it, but it feels like almost always has a couple TSM guys, right? I remember at one point I wanted to say it was like 4 TSM members in 2016 when they were super slamming and stuff.
They had 4 on first team, because they were 17-1.
And that was the most extreme. And again, not saying it's undeserving, but just like, oh, how the mighty have fallen, right? Like we're not really talking about anyone.
Is that a surprise?
Not saying it is, but I think that people will be surprised. Just like thinking historically, right? People are so used to seeing first team, lots of TSM members. Of course, Bjergsen's in the conversation for MVP. He was won so many times, like all these guys. But we go through all these roles, and none of them are really up there. And again, not saying that's wrong. It's just interesting because this has historically been the most dominant team in North America. And it really, to me, has kind of shown, like it's like a sign of the times, right? Like as far as how they have not performed.
Yeah, I don't think that if you consider what has happened with this team this year, I don't think it's surprising at all.
Yeah, it's
totally they didn't make playoffs for the first time, or they didn't go to finals weekend at all. Then
I have an answer to your question.
Okay.
2016 spring is the last time they didn't have someone in the top 3 of MVP.
Okay. But did they have anyone first team?
They were 9-9.
Okay.
I don't think they did.
That would be really
because Jensen was first team mid. That was the Immortals year.
Okay.
So it was actually 4 Immortals and Jensen on first team because they were 17-1 that split with their only loss being to CLG. But this was a very similar split to that for TSM, where they're struggling for most of the year. They just switched out most of their roster, and it didn't click. They went to finals that year.
Yep.
Dun.
Dun.
But yeah, I agree with you, and that's because of TSM struggle. Last thing is, to a point you brought up earlier, Kobe, where you said you don't think this year will be that controversial. There's still something in the back of my mind that thinks,
compared to other years, MVP is always controversial. I know some people are mad already.
Yeah, the C9 guys.
I'm pre-mad.
Because there is a very strong argument to make that C9 is right now the best team in the league.
Yeah.
Because they've won 9 of 10, including 2 wins over Team Liquid.
Again, the difficulty, though, is then you have to choose on that team.
That's the thing, though. But I think there is a chance that Licorice and Jensen get a lot of votes.
I think they should get a lot of votes.
They get a lot of votes, but Double-ish wins, and people are saying, well, that's not fair. They were better. They're on the better team. They just kind of cannibalized each other.
We'll see, because that's where the controversy, I think, will eventually lie. The year that Arrow won, Haunter and Bjergsen were 2 and 3. So they stole votes from each other. Anyway, that'll be fun.
I 100% agree, but I think that's why we can kind of see where it's trending, right?
Yeah.
There's no doubt that Licorice and Jensen have both been great, and even like you can mention so many of the players on the Cloud9 roster. They have so many good ones. I think they're the ones heading in with the most value on this full 7-man roster that you're allowed to bring. And I don't think many people would contest that, especially after Sven and Golden Glue came in and did what they did to Team Liquid.
Yeah. So just for some dates for you guys, the NALCS first team will be announced during quarterfinals weekend. The semifinals weekend will do coach and rookie of the split. And before finals, the MVP will be announced. So we gave our opinions, not saying who we're voting for, because we can't put those in until Thursday, and then you'll get those results.
Hello everyone, challengers and challengers alike. Step right up to another episode of The Freak Show. Now, I keep telling them to stop with all the Shaco imagery, but it keeps happening. So That's fine. In patch 8.16, a lot of damage runes were nerfed, so I want to talk about why that happened and just how big these changes are for the champions that use them. Now, throughout the 2018 season, as the old runes and masteries made way for new runes reforged, damage seemed to be creeping up in the game. Champions were dying faster than ever, even without changes to their statistics or abilities. So, as of 8.16, some offensive runes are now weaker. Airy deals less damage, Celerity grants less bonus attack damage and ability power, Scorch's damage is halved, though its cooldown is shorter. And over on the other side of the tree, Electrocute has lower base damage and ratios with a quicker cooldown as well. Cheap Shot deals less damage, and Sudden Impact grants less lethality and magic penetration. That's a lot of words, so to simplify, stab stab, less hurt, stab stab. Now, these changes don't mean much outside the context of an actual game or an entire champion's skill set. In order to look through that lens, I took a look at the most played champions who use these runes and did the math to see how much their damage actually moved as a result of the rune changes. So instead of inundating you with tons and tons of graphs, we're going to be talking about just Ahri, a single champion, and using her numbers to represent the effects of 8.16's changes. So let's get into my favorite part of it, the math. Now this is a graph of Ahri triggering Electrocute and Scorch and landing all of her available abilities on a single target, including all 3 casts of Spirit Rush from level 6 and onward. It's also a special graph because we have 2 y-axes and 4 squiggly lines. Science may indeed have gone too far. But first, look at the bottom left corner. This is how much total base damage she had before and after the patch. The difference is there. It's not all that noticeable, but she's down about 30 to 60 in her base damage throughout the game. Now that's displayed in different terms via the yellow line starting in the top. Now it's the same numbers but displayed as a percentage. What starts at about a 20% damage nerf at level 1 ends up as less than 5% off her total burst damage as her higher level abilities start doing the heavy lifting. Now look at the very top line in orange. Because Electrocute lost 0.05 to its AD and AP ratio, there's a change in her total scaling, but that's even smaller. She'll end up closer to 1% down as she builds ability power. Other champions with high damage kits that use runes like these see a very similar difference in their damage output. It's going to hurt champions in the early game, but the effects taper off not only with levels, but buying more items as well. In other words, lane bullying and early ganks got nerfed, but team fighting really didn't. That's the curtain on this episode of The Freak Show. We might not always cover patches or even use math in future episodes, so please tell us what you'd like to see covered in anywhere from 2 to say 20 minutes. Most likely we will be back for Worlds. Until then, remember that knowledge is power, so use it wisely. Or don't, like me.
Coming in at number 5, Invictus Gaming's rookie made a splash when he took down 3 members of Vici Gaming with a single paddle star.
They're pinned into a narrow corridor. Look at the damage as it comes across. Ning looks for entry. They've found Shinsai once again. He goes gold, but a triple kill for Rookie! He lands the paddle star burst and finds the lollipop AoE.
Warping into number 4, Shulka's Vizichachi bamboozled his enemies and made a flashy escape.
Now is the time to go in. Vizichachi not expecting this to come through, and he's going to have to run the wrong way. There's the Realm Warp trying to flash into it. Oh, the great escape! How about that, Vizichachi?
Oh, so he knew. If he stayed in there, he might not be able to fully get out, but by running away from K-Drill and then flashing back just when the ulti activates, he gets out.
At number 3, Furious Gaming's Prodi survived an attempted gank and turned the tables for a triple kill.
En Smeblock se podría intentar esquivar eso, un destello, algo más. No, creyó que podía esquivarlo, pero mientras tanto tarda 3 siglos, 8 en erradicar a su objetivo. Y lo aprovecha Prodi. Mira, ahí está lo que juega. Se va a llevar el doble asesinato sin problemas. Intentará ir por el tercero. El cuarto impacto es el que duele. Pero ahí están esas tagas pluma.
At number 2, FFQ's Celebrity blasted away the enemy team with an explosive pentakill.
Và con mẹ rừng nó vẫn thuộc về FQ, nhưng tối ưu thư trong tay của Taron được gửi đến một người. Celeb được bắn, anh ta nhảy ra, anh ta bắn cùng một người, anh ta bắn cùng thêm người nữa, vẫn tiếp tục là một sát thương. Celeb vẫn đang được chơi. Penta nuôi ma đi nào, chúng tôi chịu rồi, nhảy ra, đây rồi, Penta kill.
And at number 1, Griffin's Chovy landed a huge 4-man shockwave that led to their Game 5 victory, securing Griffin's spot in the LCK Finals.
How can Griffin stop it? Not entirely sure, Papa. Chovy's moving over. Tarzan has barely
It's
a
a
health
one-way
bar.
trip, and he
has
goes.
the flash in, he doesn't get it! As Tarzan gets so much back from the Kingston, 4-man shockwave! As Korra cannot do anything to answer. And Griffin, they may have just won the game off the back of Chovy. That's the double kill. Tucson, he's looking for more, and there's the triple. Chovy, the 17-year-old, the youngest man in the LCK, may have just brought Griffin to the grand final of the LCK.
Welcome back to This or That with Kobe and Jat. We have 6 slides today that we've never seen before, and I guarantee it will be more entertaining and useful than the 4 tiebreaker games we played on Monday.
Because the tiebreaker games ended up as the power rank.
It was literally just the pre-seed anyway.
Yeah.
They're actually entertaining. It'll be more useful, though, from the tiebreaker games. First slide on This or That with Kobe and Jat. Bigger skill gap. Damonte versus Bjergsen or Dardoch versus Grig. We talked about this matchup a lot, actually, on the dive. Kobe, what's your answer?
These are the 2 ones that we brought up, actually, because Grig, while he has been great at landing smites for TSM, you know, all the Baron steals, securing objectives, he has had a decent amount of wasted time in the early game, especially, and Dardoch has punished that very heavily against people this split.
And on the other side, if you think 14 kill Akali Bjergsen versus Damonte, you think, wow, that's completely one-sided. But then you also have the rest of the split where he was just kind of this passive laner who didn't roam. And it's so hard to know which Bjergsen and which Dardoch is going to show up. Is it going to be the really active Bjergsen, or is it going to be the feeding Dardoch, right? The potential of the bigger skill gap, I think I'm going with Bjergsen, but
I went with this one on the dive. I'm going with this one again. I think there's a huge jungle mismatch here. Whereas Damonte has actually had some pretty good Syndra games. So, you know, depending on what champion select goes like. Plus, in the next patch for playoffs, there's going to be less damage from runes. Some of the assassins are getting nerfed.
This is really exciting.
So I go this one.
I'm going to go with this.
I mean that.
I'm going to disagree with you. You
Next
can't even
slide.
get your words right. I'm
Next
1 for
slide,
0.
number 2. More disappointing second half. 100 Thieves or Echo Fox. Why is CLG and Golden Guardians not up there? Because those are the ones
just too
that
disappointing.
Lost
like,
all
this is
of
still a
their
happy
games.
show. We're not. You can't
Well,
lose every game.
out of the winners here that are going to playoffs, which one was more disappointing? I think if you speak from the individual perspective of someone like Huni, probably Echo Fox, because I know he's not happy with you know, his play and how it's gone.
Yeah, it's weird. In order to be disappointing, you have to compare it against the expectations of the team. And I think when 100 Thieves in the second half traded away Meteos for Anda, a lot of people were expecting them to do poorly, and they finished 3rd, which I think is actually kind of good. Whereas this Echo Fox team was in contention for a playoff bye when they made their change and ended up finishing 4th. So I would say Echo Fox was more disappointing, especially when we were considering the ceiling for this team and how much people were potentially hyping them. So I'm going this.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here for Echo Fox because this is a new organization that placed 2nd in spring and 3rd in summer. I don't think it's disappointing.
All right, slide number 3 on This or That. Better team, the newcomers or the veterans?
Ooh.
These 5. This might take a little bit for us to digest. We're going to do this right now. Dokla, Blabber, Damonte, Lost, Azazel versus Darshonic, Smithy, Pobelter, Walter. Ooh, that's a good veteran team, actually.
This is a good rookie team.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, they could have made this a little bit better. Like, would Licorice also count as a newcomer?
They put some really good players on veterans here, like Smithy and Afro. I think veterans is better. I'm thinking about.
Actually, this is definitely better.
Yeah, Smithy is too solid. Pobelter's always a rock. Like Aframu's arguably the best support in the history of the NLCS. They could have toned it down a little.
I think they could have put better newcomers on the newcomer slide, actually, even.
Who?
Licorice.
This
year.
Yeah, I guess technically.
If you're counting that as
that
newcomer.
would have changed the
Anyway, we both choose that. Slide
it's an
number
interesting
3.
question. If we go in depth, it'll be like a 42-minute episode of This or That, and we'll call it the dive. But let's get to slide number 4. Feels worse.
Wait, is that not 3?
This is 4.
I miscounted.
Keep track. Golden Guardians coming last again, or COG missing playoffs again.
This is the slide that I thought the last one was going to be.
I thought it was a happy show. It's not.
Turns out. Here we go. Feels worse? Oh, man. I know the Golden Guardians not being able to end on a win feels worse for those players. COG, they did make a couple roster swaps at the end, and at least they got to end on some wins, so I'm going to go with Golden Guardians.
Is worse because they lost 9 games in a row. But they don't have any history. COG has a history of making playoffs.
That's a long time ago.
2017?
That's a long time ago.
Multiple times? I think it's COG missing playoffs for the first 2 times in their history. I mean, technically, Golden Guardians also missed for the first 2 times in their history. They just had no precedent of making it.
They won. I mean, they lost like every single one of their last games.
It doesn't say Golden Guardians coming, like losing the last 9 games. It says, both are bad. But I think COG feels worse because the expectation.
I go this.
All right, that
slide.
number 5 threw me off. What's the worst teammate? Fed and toxic or feeding and friendly?
Fed and toxic to me. Because if they're being toxic to you, a lot of the times, even if you're doing well, I'm like, I don't feel like I want this person to win anyway.
Yeah, well also
just,
like, okay, they're not going to be toxic if the game is going well.
Yeah.
Usually. So like, I will take a fed teammate over a feeding teammate, but the combination of fed and toxic usually shows the overall state of the game. And like friendly and feeding, you have a chance of coming back as well because the positivity on the team.
That's a good point. If they are fed and toxic, it means they're the only person doing well on the team, probably.
Usually.
And they're flaming you for doing bad when you're already in a bad situation.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely worse.
Yeah, and then I'm also doing bad in that game, so that
Yeah.
feels bad, where if it's a feeding friendly dude, I can be like, yeah, bud, I'll carry you. It's just a way better
It's
feeling
hard for me to
overall.
get mad at people if they're doing bad, if they're like, oh, sorry, guys, I'm really trying over
Yeah.
here, you know? So
Yeah.
I'd definitely go this.
Yeah, that is definitely worse. Final slide of this or that.
Who can't get their words right? You just said the other one now.
Worse Reddit analysts. Fire Reaper or bench Bjergsen. Both of these things were conversations this split. Cloud9 started in last place. Everyone saw Faker was benched for Piri, and they're thinking, where's Blaze Olive, guys?
Yeah,
What's worse?
I feel like this one is worse with Reaper because not only did they make the run from 10th up to 2nd place, but their roster is so stock full of talent. They're heading into playoffs with 7 strong players, not just 5.
Yeah, this is probably too much of a hypothetical, but you know how they finished the first half like 3-6? If they had finished the split 6-12, then I'd say that would actually be more correct Reddit analysis, but that didn't happen, right? So I think you would only let go of a coach like Reaper really late into the season if
This is also
didn't pan
not
out.
good analysis.
Yeah, you don't bench the
Quite
4-team
clearly.
MVP because he's like middle of the pack for half the split.
He's still Bjergsen.
Yeah, and he's still gonna be able to turn it back on. It's tough, but I'm gonna say this was the worst one.
Next slide.
Okay, Kobe, what's the next slide? It's
The last
over!
one.
It's over!
This is a slide right here.
Okay, is it this or that?
Yeah.
Which one?
So this is the show, this or
Which
that.
one do you pick more often?
That's interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Off the top of my
Are you
head,
side biased?
off the top of my head, I'd probably say that because it's closer to me.
That
but
could, if that's true, then this show loses all credibility. If I'm this and you're that.
it doesn't lose all credibility. It could just be a coincidence.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Playoffs start this coming week on Saturday and Sunday with the matchups we talked about.
Come join us.
And it's gonna be exciting.
We have so many different stories between our players on why we can't make final or why we can't win, but new story starts with us winning.
And Echo Fox are going to playoffs.
Recently, we've started living up to our old reputation that TSM is a team to be feared. I think all the teams that we're playing against know that we can show up at any given day.
You think TSM, you think Bjergsen, and now his visage is burned into the mind of every fan out there.
This playoffs is a pretty big deal for me because last time I was in playoffs was 2017 spring. This year at playoffs, I want to perform a lot better.
Wild Turtle got a solo kill on a Cody-san.
In my career, I just won once, and I did a lot of times second place.
this is one more chance to be champion, so I want to win.
Someday is the savior of 100 Thieves!
We started from the bottom and we had a really rough road ahead of us. And then we managed to, prove everyone wrong.
They'll take the Nexus, they'll take the bye, and they are taking the NALCS by storm.
What a season from Team Liquid. The Spring Split champions locking in first place here.
In playoffs, I just want to get back to the form where, it's impossible to kill me. You know your balling's going to lose against me no matter what. That kind of fear, I know that teams always have it when they play against me, so I'm going to get that again. I think I want people to remember that any time that I'm playing in LCS, I'm going to win.
They don't know anybody like me. I was an anomaly in esports when I came in, and my personality rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. A lot of people wanted to see me lose. On top of it, I didn't know how to handle losing, so it was just a double whammy.
Pretty shocking news 2 weeks ago when Dardoch was suspended. He's suspended by Team Liquid.
Now, the models of recent jungle acquisition Dardoch, question is, can he excel on this new roster?
He's a great player. It just shows he doesn't have the level of maturity.
CLG, Immortal, swapping Xmithy, and Dardoch. He hasn't found the right team yet.
Dardoch to TL. My first response was, what the fuck? You don't keep getting chances. Eventually, no one will pick him up. Can you get something good out of this player is one of the biggest questions.
Bethlehem was really just like a low middle class area, I guess. Probably a little worse than that. I just lived with my family in, I think we rented a floor of somebody else's house. Our entrance was in the middle of an alleyway, so I just remember leaving to school every day out the front door, walking down this alley with my brother. At the very beginning, League was more so just like an escape from my everyday life at home, I guess. It was pretty boring, a lot of family issues, stuff like that. Me and my dad have had really bad temper problems, and I think, well, obviously I get it from my dad, but 13 and on, I got more mature in that sense, to where I wouldn't freak out and get in random fistfights in the street and that kind of stuff, or in school. But yeah, anger is always just really something I've struggled to deal with my whole life, for sure. When I was in sophomore year, I got really, really good at League, and I stopped caring so much about school because esports was kind of blowing up. It was I think season 2 or season 3 at the time. My brother helped me convince my parents to let me play in Challenger Series, and then yeah, that's been my life ever since.
Taking over for I Will Dominate is Dardoch in the jungle.
A very vocal player, very aggressive player.
I would say that my in-game style as a jungler definitely mimics my personality.
Now Hui's got to be careful because look at the layered CC into the ulti perfectly played.
In the way that I am a pretty abrasive personality.
Honestly, it's a fluke.
They're not the better team, not even close. When I was 17 and I first moved out to California, I knew that I was like unreplaceable for the team, for sure.
This might burn the Flash.
Oh! The Flash burned the Cocoon predicted.
The Dardoch hype. What a Cocoon right there.
Dardoch gets one, traded back in by GBM. Lysandra is low, though. Triple kill for Dardoch, killing everybody with a quadra kill.
I could have just done whatever, picked whatever in scrim, said whatever to whoever complained about X, blamed Y, that kind of thing. There's a lot of petty arguments I had in the past where I would just have them for sake of, you know, feeling powerful or being, yeah, just having like I had a lot of power trips when I was really coming up in the scene.
Moving back, move backwards.
Okay, it's over. You guys like don't listen to the teamfight calls at all, actually. It's actually quite astonishing.
On my first couple of teams that I would just argue for really no reason just because somebody would like, you know, critique me or something really simple like that. I ran through the same routine pretty much every split. I would go to whoever my owner was and ask to be traded because I was never happy on whatever team I was on. At that time, I was just really, I had an issue with pretty much anybody on my team that was underperforming, essentially.
You didn't talk all game. You're not listening to your teammates, and you're not paying attention. You guys just need to focus way more for next game. Because this game was all on you guys, bottom.
Throughout my whole career, I've always been able to justify myself by saying that I'm a really great individual talent and I'm really young and I'm an NA import, that kind of stuff, and it would always get me on the team regardless of how I acted or, you know, my attitude, that kind of stuff. But after I was replaced by CLG, then I had to watch the playoff run of CLG and IMT, both teams that I was on. That Immortals, same roster, just with the Xmithy in place of me, just comes to the team and essentially takes them from 7th place in the split that they had with me to Worlds. The main problem was obviously me. There's only one person that changed, so watching them go to Worlds in general is obviously really saddening, and that was like probably my lowest point. I knew that it wasn't gonna be I needed to like for sure change, and it was like not gonna work anymore. After a certain amount of times when the player keeps asking to get traded after each split, somebody's gonna be like, why is he not sticking on one team? Anytime a young talent comes along, any team should be really happy to just take it along and try and nourish it, you know what I mean? But yeah, after I was the problem kid on 4 different teams and like 5 different rosters, that kind of thing, it's just, I'm just a problem kid. No longer am I just like a promising rookie. I'm just an issue for a team at that point. Last summer, they finally let me know at the end of their roster iterations that I wasn't selected, that I'm gonna be finally let go towards being a free agent. During that break period, it kind of sunk in that I might just not play for a year or a split or however long, and I might have to move back out of California because I can't afford it, that kind of thing. I didn't really think I was gonna get a team, so I reached out to everyone. I sent individual emails to each team, and the only team to reply was Echo Fox, and yeah, it was pretty apparent that at that time it was my last chance.
Super surprised that Dardoch is getting another chance, just straight off the bat. I'm actually very surprised that he's on another LCS roster. There's been so many problems with him. So many times it's like, is this his last chance? Yeah, it's probably his last chance. Well, he's on Echo Fox.
We asked our group, and they kind of told me that he had blown up here and had problems here, problems with teammates. And I said, well, look, let's bring him in and talk to him. Let's interview him. He had like a dad hat on, had his glasses on, came in, big smile on his face, sat down across his legs. And I was like, something's not quite adding up. And I said, why is everybody scared of you? And he goes, because I just want to win. And they go, if they're not doing what I think it takes to win, I'll tell them. I respect that. I'm the same way. I was blown away by the kid. I talked to a bunch of his ex-teammates, and not one of them said he was a bad person. They said they had problems with him in the game, they had problems with this, but they all spoke very highly of him. And I think that's a key indicator of someone that's just young and needs an understanding person around them. I always base a couple decisions on everything I do. Are you a good person or are you talented? If you're a good person and you're talented, I can make the rest of it work.
No coach I've ever had has complained about my individual performance, but at every time in my career, I've always heard like, this player would never act like this in game. This player would never do that. Like, and they're all these great players, and then I finally meet all these great players, and you know, on my career, I play with someone like Afreeca, who is one of those players that a coach would bring up in a case where it's like, you know, you're gonna keep composure on stage when you're upset. It's like Afreeca is like #1, Bjergsen, you know, Double It, those kind of people. And then I actually meet those people and play with those people. And I really did see that none of them acted like I did in games. So it really was an eye-opening thing that it was just like, if I want to be on the level of these players or even play alongside them, I could not have any of these issues.
I always call him Party Cloudy. I mean, sometimes he comes in, everything's Party Cloudy. And I'm like, look, man, take a step back. Look at where you are, look at what you've done in your life. Be happy, smile. And he will, he'll put on a smile because he's so consumed by this team going to Worlds, or this team competing at that level. And we'll get there. And I told him that. I said, we've come so far and we'll keep going.
Jared's always been a really upfront guy with me. He's like the team dad, I guess. We'll just go to his office if we need literally anything, any kind of issue we're having. He just has a wealth of experience in terms of being somebody in the spotlight in general, because he was an NBA player and he's interacted with countless NBA players. Along with me joining, obviously, the stigma of me being a toxic player, that kind of stuff, he wasn't concerned with that at all.
I had kids that came from real neighborhoods, in real areas, you know, grew up in very tough situations, tough homes, didn't trust anybody. From the very beginning, I told him, you can come in and yell at me, I'm gonna yell at you right back. And once we get all that out of our system, as long as you can be a man about it and step up and do your job the way you should, I'll do my job, it doesn't affect each other. And he said that, and that's what we've done. I mean, we've had arguments, we've had heated arguments, but it hasn't affected our relationship. If I'm not doing my job to get this organization where it should be, come tell me. But please believe that if you're not playing the way that I should, or treating your teammates or coaches the way you should, I'm gonna tell you.
Even the best players have weaknesses, while also they have different strengths. Like, I'm a really passionate person, so I can use it to be more positive toward my teammates rather than negative, and I can just try and wane off the negativity.
It's up to me to put people around him that can respond to his kind of motivation. There are probably guys in the past that when they were around, they saw it, it really got to him. I feel like the team and the roster that we have right now, when he does talk like that, I think Hooney does an amazing job of keeping him positive. You know, hopefully, Hooney and him will be the people that kind of like turn the corner for Echo Fox. So you'll look back years from now and, you know, what was kind of the catalyst for where this team is, and it'll be those guys.
Echo Fox now needs to win this game to keep control of their own postseason destiny.
We're out of playoffs if we lose, 100%.
But we're gonna win, don't worry.
Okay, let's go.
Oh no, Solo's in trouble.
Maybe we can still get a spot.
Dash over to Dardock.
Done. We can kill him. I can W flash.
I'm tanking. Another auto attack, but Dardock's able to come in with the flail and clean him up. That's 2 for 0 Echo Fox.
Echo Fox is just really starting to run rampant across the map.
You're fine, yeah, flash, yeah? Yeah, you got him. Look at Ash. Ash. Nice, boys.
Both bottom lane members taken down.
Yeah, snipe him out, baby, snipe him out. Yeah. Okay, boys.
The jungler being down means Echo Fox get an easy Baron on the back of that.
Nice, guys. Guys, we made playoffs, holy moly.
Going down. The Nexus is going down. And Echo Fox are going to playoffs.
They reminisce like this, block bodies that I'm dropping, always sound like hits. So what? You talk about the fights I lost. I just wanna talk about the fights I won. I reminisce like this, cause the bodies that I'm dropping always sound like hits.
My GP is winning from minute 3. As Sejuani GP versus fucking their counter pick Aurelia and Kindred. The game's...
It's not like I've changed who I am or anything like that over the years. It's just I guess I've evolved as a person.
Yeah, game was pretty clean. Our carries played well. I think the comms are just gonna, we'll just have to assign a leader.
I've found my place to exist. At the end of the day, I'm a competitor and I want to win, so I'm only going to change things that I view are going to be better for me and my team's chances of winning.